can't take back what you've done. I see you for who you
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hot Zone, your favorite place to talk about everything going on in the Apex Legends competitive scene. My name is Y4SO, your host, as always, joined by my co-host, my very good friend, Zephyr, and we are on episode number 12, everybody, and we're back here. Lots to talk about here today. Might be a bit of a shorter episode, but certainly some things to dig into in terms of Pro League Qualifiers, the brand new season, and all of that, as well as our first look at competitive Apex on the latest patch. But it is Thursday. It's Hot Zone time. Zephyr, how you doing?
Dude, it has been a hellish week for me in
Yeah.
terms of like the time frame, because we go from last week talking about like, oh, we're getting ready for Pro League qualifiers, right? And that's like the Thursday of. So then we roll into the weekend, which is quite literally the most Apex I think I've ever casted in 2 days.
Sure.
The change to Pro League qualifiers was fucking intense. 16 games day one, match point day two.
Yeah.
I think I covered 25 games, and let's not even talk about Dia. Freaking covered an absurd 42 games, just like
Yeah.
monumental. And then on top of that, I go into like Tuesday. I've got, for everyone who forgets, I'm a university student who's only 20. I had an exam on Tuesday. Turn around. Oh, by the way, on Monday I celebrated Valentine's Day because I knew Tuesday was going to be an exam. So I go from Pro League Quals, Valentine's Day, exam on Tuesday. Wednesday night, Esports Arena Series Z calls me in. My day that's supposed to be a break, casting. Today, one interview this morning with your boy Q, who I can see in chat over there. This, and then weather tonight. And then tomorrow, Zephyr Showdown.
Yes, sir.
This has been a all cylinders firing week for me. It has been, to say it's been intense is insane.
Well, hopefully the next 45 minutes to an hour, chill, sit back, we can talk shop, have a good time, hang out with chat. So hello everybody who's watching live. Big thank you again for continuing to come out and support the show. But why don't we just dive right into it? Let's talk Pro League qualifiers. You want to start in EMEA?
Hell yeah. Let's talk EMEA Pro League qualifiers. So obviously we saw that one finish off this weekend. Lots of big names. Notably, just to like confirm, we did start off the Pro League qualifiers with just 5 of the Pro League teams dropping down into it. And even 2R1C was a bit more of like a sketchier mess of not really being Scars anymore.
Sure.
Because, Scars has left Apex. Well, not really. Scars has left them at this point. Scars is still around. Zephyr can confirm. Scars is still around. That's like the biggest spoiler I have ever just dropped.
Don't worry, Stomps. I'll make you feel some type of way even further later in the show. That's not like me hitting on Stomps.
No. That was like, are you hitting on Stomps?
That's
like randomly.
That's me literally saying like I gotta put some respect on Stomps' name during today's show.
Okay.
We're not in the NA
not
section.
During, not
EMEA.
In the NA section. Okay. I was like, God damn. I mean, he's attractive. Don't get me wrong.
I mean,
yeah. Anyways, so obviously we do see a bit of a drop down with some of those teams, notably like 3 Muppets, Bitfix, Echo, etc. It does look like successfully in the top 8. Please don't hate me for not being able to remember this off cuff as I look at these again.
Sure.
And fuck you to anyone who says otherwise. Notably, of the teams who are dropped down there, it is just Bitfix and 2R1C and Phoenix Legacy of those 5 who do manage to make it back to Pro League Split 2. Echo, 3 Muppets, they lose out on their spot. And alongside them now are joined by Kella, Outplayed, From Nowhere, SPS, and Rats, which is super awesome. Some of those teams, obviously, outplayed in Rats. If you've been a fan of EMEA in the past, they have been within Pro League. Back when it was like a 40-team split, they were definitely within the realm of Pro League for a very long time. So Sorbin, Tolkien, and Mania, glad to see them back. Outplayed as well. They super duper duper deserve it. But what I'm more interested in talking about is those who missed out. Obviously, the big name to miss out in Pro League qualifiers, 789 does not make it through EMEA. Obviously, if you just kind of jumped in recently, maybe don't know, obviously 789, a huge part of the Pro League scene. Estesu, Zanya, and what was originally Dave into now Kazakh coming through to play for that roster. Was in Pro League in the past. Going into Challenger Circuit became Project Armor. Project Armor missed out on one preseason qualifier due to like a very minor mistake, and then they're forced to play through Challenger Circuit, right? And literally, I did the math. If 789 had played that first preseason qualifier, they would be in Pro League, right? So they go through this entire season, blast through Challenger Circuit, make it happen, and then the day comes, we go into finals, and they finish 14th overall. It is a huge loss for EMEA to not have 789 part of this upcoming split. It is absurd. And it's crazy because it's like, yeah, I look at some of these names and it's like Phoenix Legacy kicked ass this week.
Yep.
Right? From nowhere, great job early. 2R1C pulled out the stops in those final 3 games. 789 was just marginally good throughout the entirety of it. I know you have the scoring up, but I just want to highlight it. 789 was at 50 points. And to qualify for Pro League, you needed to be at 57 or above.
Well, and I think the most interesting thing to kind of point out about that specific point spread is that they were a team that got to match point, right, in match 8, and it, of course, ended up going 9 games. But they actually ended up with the way things shook out. They got 0 points in that last game and ultimately ended up with 4 teams ahead of them that didn't even get to match point. So, like, they barely got there, and then the first opportunity that they had was ultimately the last opportunity, and they did nothing with it, which is really unfortunate.
And it sucks because, I mean, to be honest, looking at the prior games from them, I mean, in comparison to the top rosters you see in that lobby, no, 789 had a very poor finals. Only one top 4 finish across the entirety of those 9 games, and it got really close, and they had some kind of remnants of success towards the end of the day with some big KP, some higher placement, but it was far too late. And it's one of those situations where they hedged their bet, and if those games had come to an end in round 8, awesome. We're talking about 789 Pro League. It went 1 game further. They had a bad drop, run off spawn, finish with 0, and as a result, they lose. Because literally, I believe in game 8, they were in the top 8, and then after that game, they dropped. Which is just so insane to talk about because it's like...
And part of that shows how close that was, right, in that kind of clump. Because they don't just drop out of the top 8, they drop to 14th. Right?
That's right.
But above them, it's
crazy.
52, 52, 52, 53, 54. So, they were 5 points away from being that 9th place team.
Which I'm not exactly sure. Like, this has not been confirmed yet. We're still looking to see what the slots work out to in EMEA.
Correct.
It is confirmed to be the top 8. Samsung Morningstars definitely are going to be that first shoe-in to potentially get a slot with, I believe, LFO and Start a Fight combining, which is the big one. Notably, Random Names may get their shot as well, but it's going to be highly dependent on if we see some other rosters. I know individuals like Navi right now, between Rug and Zaniola, are still trying to figure things out. If they find they're looking for one, then that's no big deal. If not, maybe a Random Name gets a shot as well. But it was such a tight Pro League qualifiers.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think it started with from nowhere at 49 points within 2 games, and they could not. In game 3, they finally hit match point. They get their 1.50. And then they just never, ever performed
from nowhere
ever again.
Some absolute duds. Like, imagine coming in
Literally.
second place, 28 kills across the first 2 games.
Insane.
13th place, no kills. 18th place, no kills. 18th place, no kills. 17 no kills. 15 no kills. Like, you shit your pants in 5 of the 9 games. And, like, thankfully they did enough early on and, like, held on for dear life for,
Right.
you know, a few games to where they made it in. But from nowhere, like, if I'm being honest, of those, like, of the teams that are in, it's kind of weird to say, but it almost feels like From Nowhere's performance feels like the one that almost least deserves to be in there. Like, 2 games, you took care of your business, you put yourself in the spot, and you held on long enough, but, like, fucking A.
We see that go 1 game further, and it's very clear that From Nowhere could have been, like, right on the edge. And the thing is, they were just putting up enough necessary points. I want to point out that in their final, like, 3 or so games, or in the final, after what was their first 2 incredible rounds, Y4SO, they were only ever able to put up 16 additional points after that.
Yep.
Across 7 games.
11 kills. Less than 2 kills a game across 7 games.
That is, and for a team that came out of the running with quite literally some of the best Apex I had seen, like, I thought we were in for a 4-game match point series for looking at From Nowhere. They just, I really wonder what it was, because I feel like at the end of the day, they may have just been like, oh, we're so far and above in the points that we're just going to coast. And I think that's what they did.
Oh, that feels like...
It's crazy, and it's crazy
format.
that they could do that.
Ugh. I just can't imagine that mentality in that kind of format.
It's
right?
I don't know.
It.
I really don't know.
I get it if you're like, you know, if oh, we're only playing 6 games today. We're in first through 3, and we're smoking it. Like, we can try and,
right,
slow play. Maybe we're dropping and contesting somebody that we're trying to, like, gatekeep from getting up into the mix or something. Like, that kind of makes sense. But when this thing can get strung out and you're like that first team that has the opportunity to make that killing blow to end it, and like that's the thing about match point format is, like, when you get to match point, you hold so much control, and to take
everyone
your foot
else
off the gas then when the target's on your back. And we don't know if that's what they did, but, like, ultimately that would feel crazy to me.
Yeah, I will say, looking at the 8 who have made it in, I think the most deserving is Outplayed and Kella. I think Kella a little less so than Outplayed. Outplayed clearly showed us in the winners bracket how dominant they were. They've been here, they've done this. It's been a part of them for so long. It felt like it was just getting business done. Yeah. There was at no point that I felt worried about Outplayed, and they're really having a rough show of things here. They were consistent through and through. I think they're the best team coming out of the Pro League Qualifiers. They don't have the highest highs out of the teams that are coming from the Pro League Qualifiers.
Yeah.
Do not get me wrong. But they definitely are, like, if you put them into a macro-oriented lobby that is Pro League, I think Outplay did a fantastic. And then outside of that, the 2 biggest highlights for me is Porcupine picks right up on it.
Yep.
Phoenix Legacy and 2R1C. Literal, could not be more identical of a story for these 2 teams. The fact that both of them get into a situation where they basically shit the bed for the first half of the tournament.
Yeah, very
and then
slow starts.
out of nowhere, for Phoenix Legacy, crazy. Blows it out of the fucking water. Sabs, Alpha Draft, and wow, am I doing this right now? Sabs, Alpha Draft, and this is the one who's been a part of the roster one of the longest. Imp. Oh my gosh, thank you guys.
I'm going to just scroll back up and chat to aren't you the EMEA guy from Porcupine?
You're so guys, there's like literally hundreds of players.
Yes.
Give me some. No, I'm kidding.
Regions,
I should know that. But crazy for them to pop it off in like some of the most dominant games ever. And the same goes for 2R1C, freaking Hirako, Yuchako, and Jerovic. Fucking excellent. Literally the last 3 games is where they made it count. The last 3. That last game alone, third with
sweating?
4 points.
Were you
Oh,
sweating, dude?
I was so sweating. I was sweating. I was sweating so hard. Notably, that would put them at 56. If they didn't finish third there, that would put them at 56. Now,
Yeah.
granted, that still would have qualified them based on everyone else's position. They would have been in 8th.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how down to the wire was. And Apex Comp's pointing out a fantastic point here, shaking off the rust at the very end of the stint for this team. Chaco coming in like last minute, like literally 3-4 weeks ago to join alongside Yaraka and Jerovic, who, have had their embers on scars, their difficulties in their own regards, and they make it work with like no practice, no time to spare. They bring back the old school roster, and it happens, and it was insane. What is Visual Void said? Max has a broken hand. Zeri was ill, and they had 0 practice before Pro League Qualifiers. Wow. I did not. Well, I mean, I knew about Bitfix Gaming literally combining what was Corpa and Bitfix last minute too. That's also a super story. And they did really good to have some decent wins throughout the day to keep them competitive, most notably.
Started the day strong.
Yeah. Started the day super duper strong. And then finished the day with relative ease as well. I did not know, though, that Zeri was ill and that Max had a broken hand. That's crazy. Oh, last point about EMEA before we walk away from it. Our last few points regarding some of the teams that got knocked out. Dose Esports is the one that makes me the saddest. Balerion, Michijan, and Zerift.
Okay.
A team rife with history who's been through the freaking ringer. I talked to Balerion. We go into the Pro League Qualifiers, winners, losers, in question mark. Where the hell is Balerion? They've got a sub. And it's like, okay, winners bracket, they lose it. They got to drop down to losers bracket. We're, 8 games in. The next 8 games, still no Balerion. And I'm like, holy shit, this is like the biggest moment for you as a team to make it this far, to place in the top 4 overall for Challenger Circuit. And you don't have your third. And I asked him, like, what's the deal? And he's like, I'm sorry, man. It was personal issues this weekend. I couldn't compete. And it sucks because, like, it was, like, at their most crucial moment as a team. And it's a team that could have very clearly, alongside, like, the likes of Outplayed, would make it happen.
Yeah.
And being down just that one moment was, like, it's crazy. The same goes for teams like Oracle. Oracle was at full strength. Best competing team in Challenge Circuit. Couldn't quite do it in finals. UTFT, a fan favorite to a lot of people here. Like, a lot of people are UTFT fans just in a lot of regards, and literally have a touching grace of being in that top 8 after some marginal performance in the mid kind of game during rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. It felt like they had finally shaken off a lot of the expectations for them, and they were, kind of starting to really ramp. And then 2 bad games at the end seals the coffin on them.
Yeah.
And they literally finished 5 points below where they need to. So sad.
The margin for error is so slim. It's so slim, and ultimately, it comes down to 9 games. And that's one of the cool things about PLQs this weekend, is that both match point finals went 9 games. I think both had 10 teams. Both had 10 teams get to match point. Like,
for North America too?
Yeah, like Pro League Qualifiers were crazy this weekend.
It was good. Oh, well, I mean, we're talking North America and EMEA. I do want to highlight the other 2 regions or the other 3 regions ever so slightly.
Sure.
Just before we jump into North America, because I know we'll, like, get caught in that for a bit.
Yep.
As standard as it gets, going into specifically what is APAC South, 8 games. And then you have the 2 ends of the match point spectrum for the other 2 regions. For APAC North, you have the most APAC North match point ending. 17 teams on match point. 17 teams on match point. Yeah, so it goes all the way to round, like, 13. 13 games. An insane, just an absurd statistic.
Yeah.
It's so crazy that Liquipedia, I'm looking at right now, it struggles to confine all the data on the page. In the end, the team that wins it all hits match point on round 9, and it still takes them 4 games to eke out their win. I apologize for not knowing more about these teams, but my God, just to talk about the format, holy shit. And then on top of that, you have the opposite end of the spectrum, South America. 3 games. Team comes in and fucking blasting a 22-point start, Asto. We go into the next game, 22-point start. They pick up the next 28 points exactly necessary to put them at 50. They hadn't won a game yet. They went from placing 5th to 2nd, and then in the 3rd game where they are match point eligible, a win with 12 kills. 82 points overall. An insane. Astony was just a terrifying entity to witness. It was so quick. I was able to watch it just because it was only 3 games. Anyways, North America.
I love that we're getting that mix too. Really excited. I will say, kind of my final thought. Very excited about EMEA. Phoenix Legacy coming back, great. 2R1C, very, very psyched for that. You know the kind of general nature of like working alongside you so much, talking about EMEA with you so much. It's difficult not to become a Uchako and Hiraka fan just by proxy. So very excited for that. Looking forward to seeing what Bitfix can do. Hoping the changes can kind of be a bit of a catalyst in terms of Pro League. And I would say Outplayed probably the team that I'm like most curious / excited about going into Split 2, at least from Pro League Qualifiers in EMEA. So very much looking forward to that. Let's jump over to the North America. Also 9 games. Also 10 teams, as we already mentioned, getting to match point. And this is where I have to
names, by the way.
This is where I have to, as I mentioned a little earlier on the show, give Stomps his roses here. In a quick kind of my history of Stomps, Stomps is one of the players that I've been watching since I got into competitive Apex Legends. Has been one of my favorite players since I started. Back when he was playing with Team Pop-Tarts back in Season 2 of Series Z.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really talented player. But unfortunately, kind of my opinion for a little bit is that I haven't really seen him deliver on his potential at a Pro League level. And, if you're looking at what Bots did in Pro League last split, of course, being, relegated to Pro League qualifiers, for the most part says all it needs to say, though, for clarity, they were tied with Sentinels for that 23rd spot, just outside the buffer to stay in Pro League, which was, for clarity, 4 points behind Oxygen, who finished at the bottom of that group that got to hold on to their spot, right? So, the best of the worst. But it was, especially disappointing because I felt like Bots had a good opportunity to make some noise, right? Like, don't get me wrong, Group A, Demons, Xset, NRG, Dark Zero, but when you look at the split, like the down split that G2 had and their rough start, you look at CLG not showing up nearly as much as we thought they would. Even Complexity had a dip, and you also had arguably 2 of the weakest teams in Pro League in your group in Rack Attack and Team Smiley. I felt like Bots had an opportunity to make some noise in this group, and I felt like they didn't do enough with that opportunity. So, if you remember last week, I believe I specifically pointed out that Bots was a team that I didn't have my eye on going into Pro League Quals, that I wasn't holding my breath about them requalifying. Of course, there's always a chance, but they took care of business. Bots looked really good. They had, a couple of down games overall, but they finished with the win. They got themselves to match point in 6 games, so not the fastest, but they were the second alongside Team Intel, which is also the other team that was in that same spot, right? Intel was the other team that like I've watched a lot, big fan of them. Icy Jet and Flinzar, right? But that was another team where I was like, yeah, I'm not really holding my breath. I haven't seen enough from this roster, whether it's in Series E or in terms of Challenger Circuit and all that kind of stuff, to be like buying heavily in on them making it. I was more on the Diverge train, right?
Right.
Intel got it done. Intel had a second place, a first place to get the match point in Game 6, right? And they didn't finish all that strong, which is why they literally were like essentially
Literally
a point away from not making it. But they made it in. So I have to give, props to Intel for sure, and definitely bots and stomps because they showed up. They finished strong with the W. They end up winning and ending it in Game 9. SCS, not a huge surprise there. They were definitely kind of an easy pick to make it in. And of course, they were the best team overall. They pick up 93 points. I would say mildly concerning that they get to match point in Game 4 and it goes a full 9 games. I'm not going to draw too many conclusions from that, but I would say
They still had some good top performances through and through afterwards. So I'm not like
2 third places.
It's not a from nowhere scenario,
Yeah, but I'm just like a roster with like the name value of SCS and the experience, and then you put them in a lobby of this caliber. I would expect them, especially getting to match point that early, to have done a little bit better in the back end, but ultimately they took care of business. I'm not too concerned. But your Pro League qualifier teams, we got bots, SCS, Deadass, LTC Esports in there, Sausage Sorcerers, Revival Games.
Congrats
Rise,
to Sausage Sorcerers, by the way.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's serious. Like,
Yeah.
it's a rough place to be when you're tech. I think tech's had one of the hardest, like, outside of competitive situations to deal with in Apex, going from being Furious coach
Yep.
to obviously, I mean, he festers the impressions and whatnot, but then removed it from Furious coach. Fury moves on to win everything at champs, and everyone's like, Fury's IGL. Sorry, Porcupine, you're right. I'm like, Fury's IGL, a team that was middling. His Watson steps in. Suddenly, Tech is in a terrible place of respect due to that, and then
A lot of egg on his face there.
Right, and it's like it's not really his fault in that scenario. It's just that his Watson was like at his prime going into that moment.
Sure.
And then suddenly it's coaching for Sentinels in their worst results that anyone had seen, and maybe the writing was on the wall for that roster. But in terms of results, you're like, whoa, seems to be some correlation here. And then he's like, not competing anymore, and you're like, what's gonna happen? And then out of nowhere, throws together this last-minute roster, right? Challenger circuit, etc. Running with Euban and Zanu, and it's like in Funk, and it's like, okay. And it makes it happen at the last possible moment when it matters. And he's now back in Pro League, and it's like, it's just so absurd to me, like the storyline there. And then there's so many other storylines that's like, wow. I can't believe we go into a scenario where now we're looking at individuals like Slept On, right? Karasuno. Elevate. Holy shit. Elevate.
Yeah.
All these teams no longer in Pro League. Elevate's the most dramatic one. Literally going from champs to now not even Pro League.
So here's the thing. I think context is very important when we talk about Elevate. I'm going to pull up. Let's go back. Let's go back to Split 2.
Oh, dang, they dropped
of last year.
E8 dropped them, by the way.
Yes, I did hear that.
That's crazy.
So let's go to Split 2 last year.
Dang.
Because where is it?
Dang.
Because here's the thing about Elevate, right? Yes, they went to champs, but you and I have definitely already had thorough discussions about kind of what we saw in terms of the flaws with the qualification process,
Last chance qualifiers.
you
Yeah.
know, those kinds of things, right? So like, this is a team. Where is E8 on here?
19th should be for split 2 finish.
Yes, right. So tied for 19th, which is not terrible, right? You're in the top half, but you're tied with the Lazarus roster from that split. You're a
Right.
couple of points ahead of G-Force and LMK. But in terms of like the teams behind you, it's like Atlanta Premier,
Old Atlanta Premier.
old Atlanta Premier, and like Renegades are like the only two real notable teams that you're ahead of when you look at that Pro League split, right? So like Elevate didn't really get a whole lot done, weren't that impressive. They did scrape through and get through Pro League qualifiers to go to champ, or to get through the last LCQ to go to champs, right?
Right.
But as we have had thorough discussions, the fact that they were then an invited team because of that to Pro League, I think sets the bar a little too high for what that roster was. And I think, you know, good for them on going to champs. Great story there. But like, if I'm being honest, I coming into this split, like, I wasn't looking at Elevate to like really make any noise. I think it's fair if you look at that roster and you think that they maybe underachieved this past split. I don't think that's like an unfair assessment, but I think your expectations probably shouldn't have been incredibly high for this roster. And so like them not making it back to Pro League isn't the biggest surprise for me. And I don't mean that as like a, you know, a slight on the players.
No, I
You know,
get
these
it.
are players that I've known and watched for a long time. But just like, I just wasn't, you know, just because they made it through the LCQ to champs, I wasn't buying high on this team in any sense.
I think there was a moment where Elevate could have represented themselves better, especially coming back from champs. But it's just been too long at this point. They've had their options. They've had their time. I mean, it's literally been 8 months since champs. And it's like 8 months is more than enough to readjust, find your success, and then say, okay, this is where we've gone wrong. Let's fix it. Let's bring it back and save yourself from moments like this. But it truly has just been a downtrend for the team.
Yeah.
It's a more dramatic downtrend because we talk about them being at the World Championship, which to some people feels like it was maybe just a bit of a, you know, whoa, who, you know, got locked out on the day of LCQs, right? Sure. But it only heightens the perspective on where this roster has been and where it has gone, at least in the recent year or so. Like you bring up Slept On and Karasuno, and you don't have that same kind of narrative, right? Whereas for this E8 roster, it's like, wow, I mean, how far they fall.
Yeah. So I mean, Slept On is a team that I think, because of what they did in the run up to Split 1 and how they got in, you know, that was a team that people had high hopes for and thought, "Ooh, maybe this is a team that can make some noise," that ultimately didn't deliver on that potential almost at all in Pro League, right? Had like 2 decent days, but outside of that really got nothing done. And then, you know, feels, well, technically Septon is back back on Pro League. What did I miss?
What does that mean, Porcupine?
Dead ass. Wait, is it just different rosters? Man, this is one of the hard things, is like Goat and El Karma. Okay. This is the other thing, man. There's so many rosters to track, and names stay the same or they don't. They change. Everything fucks me up. Okay.
Either way.
Yeah. Ultimately, the big takeaways though for me, well done to bots. Intel scrapes in. They're going to get their shot at Pro League. LTC Esports is interesting to see. This is a team that we've seen a ton over the last 4 to 5 months in terms of Series Z. They've been coming out as often as they possibly can and have had some really good performances. Do or die time for this SCS roster. That's definitely a team that comes in with something to prove after their last split. Yeah, you know,
Insane.
It is put up or shut up time for that team, and we'll have to see.
Tell me you
how things shake
deserve
out.
to be within Pro League, and it's not just you coasting off of years of just having the experience. Right?
Yeah, right. Tell
Like,
me,
are you hungry to actually compete for top 10 positioning, or are you just someone who lucks out due to your previous history and having those thousands of scrims over someone else? And it's like, yeah, I get it, but I mean, nothing that I saw from what became of into SCS and what was obviously split one before that, Sentinels, it's like it doesn't feel like a very deserving team at this current point. And it's like, we'll see. Like you said, a place of how will they prove themselves. A team that I was kind of sad, Redeem. Oh man, been talking about Redeem for a very long time, and they missed the cutoff by a slightly large margin. But for a team that was held in regard, especially after starting day one so well,
yeah,
literally third overall, 2 double wins, to then go into finals and just fail to find that recovery. I mean, it's got to hurt in some way.
yeah. Well, and especially they're the first team out in that last game.
Yeah.
That's a
To know
that's a
you
killer.
didn't even get the chance to put points up on the board.
Yeah.
And what could have been a very easy, because the distance between them was what, 9 points? Even placing 5th, right? 4 points with 5 kills is something Redeem can do, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, the entirety of their performance going out of North America Pro League Quals was just so rough.
It is a killer.
Rough to watch.
That's kind of generally our thoughts on Pro League qualifiers.
Yeah. Did you like the match point format this time around? This is the first we've discussed it in the past.
In
like,
terms of doing
but,
it for like the finals of Pro League Quals.
Yeah, like we've talked about it being like this was going to be the format, but now that we've actually seen it in action, did you like it a little bit better than the 6 game?
I think it's cool. I mean, I think it makes sense to give these teams experience in that kind of format, because you're not really playing it almost anywhere else, right? Like
True.
if you aren't in Pro League and going
Making
to
playoffs.
you're almost never playing this format. So I think instituting it in Pro League qualifiers, I think makes a lot of sense, and I think it's cool. You know, my general opinion, a match point format still stands. It's not perfect, and I think there's possibly better ways that we can do it. But I like it. I like it. I hope the players enjoy it, and it definitely makes Pro League qualifiers even more compelling. I think it gives you more of a reason to watch, and you only have to look at 9 games from North America and EMEA, 13 fucking games out in APAC North, to know that it can be very compelling and very tight. So I well done. I like it.
Yeah, I think as a spectator, which is what matters most to me in certain situations, I mean, it was very, very well done. It felt compelling and exciting, and it felt like the challenge of whether this was going to work or not was always constantly there. And so I mean, I enjoyed always being on the kind of my toes there, especially like for EMEA where it started so hectically, and then everyone's like, oh my god, 789 is in like 19th right now. They don't have any time. From nowhere's gonna end it all, and it's like, wow. It definitely made for.
And then they had all the time in the world, and
and then they had all the
still
time in the
didn't
world,
matter.
and that's the hard part too,
Yeah.
when you're pressured to think that you have less time, because it clearly can happen, i.e. South America,
Yeah.
right? So it definitely puts, there's, like you said, not many of these individuals get the opportunity to compete in this format. And even in just a sense of, oh, well, is this like something for you to try out and see if you can make it work? It's definitely interesting.
Yep. Revelry. went live a couple of
Alright.
days ago. I think we have some Apex games in our near future. Probably
two of us,
yeah,
yes.
this weekend. We'll drag Dia in and play. Um, but we've got a couple of days of the patch under our belt. We've got our first pro competition on the new patch under our belt as well, of course, because we were both on Series E last night.
Yeah.
First blush takeaways here from the first couple of days of play. What do you got?
It's interesting because like you look at the changes and what's going on right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like how much really did change, right? If you start really cracking down on it, it's like yes, the classes occur, but the legends are all mostly the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the balance changes do switch things up a little bit, but I want to like give credit to Respawn. They did such a good job of taking what seemed to be very simple, if you like really crack down and look at it piece by piece by piece, a simple thing, it extended to such an extreme length of the advertising of, oh, like this is such a new and fresh Apex that we're hitting numbers at their highest that they've ever been for this game. And I think that's so incredible, right?
Peak
And
concurrent
there was
players
a
on
there was a
Steam
ton of incredible
on
good stuff.
Tuesday, I think, right?
Yeah, Tuesday, like 600 something thousand concurrently, and it's like, oh my gosh,
And that's just Steam. Important to remember, right? You still have a ton of players that still play through Origin.
Origin. And it's like, wow. I mean, that like they did a good job. While it may not have been the most explosive patch, no new legend,
Mm-hmm.
no new map, literally balance changes and tweaks, right? They did, I think, something that the community has been asking for, and it's that they finally answered so many of the community's questions and asks
Mm-hmm.
that they've been looking, right? I mean, TDM. Oh my gosh, how long have people been asking for a mode like that?
Yep.
Arenas being kind of meh and maybe moving away from them, and the lack of, got it, perfect, right? Mixtape, dope, right?
Mm-hmm.
A tune up on ranked map spread,
Mm-hmm.
incredible,
Oh,
right?
that
There was
one's
so
awesome.
the quality of life across the board to bring like a fresh outlook on the game was so well done. And you can tell, even though the changes in themselves are very simple, like, wow, we made Pathfinder zip 2 times longer and faster,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Slothy. Mrs. I don't, either way. A fantastic, very minor change, but it breathes life into that one legend in the same community for so many other things across Apex. And like, I'm looking at this from a non-comp perspective right now, just because like, as a player, what a move from Respawn. And especially, I think it felt even more dramatic after what was season 15.
Yeah.
A kind of duddy start between Catalyst being a control-based legend, which isn't really the prime derivative of what people like to play in terms of mobility and whatnot.
Yeah.
Broken Moon being cool, but intrinsically maybe not the best of maps and people getting a little bit bored of it. The
Yeah.
ranked system, which still needs its improvements, but definitely being in its one of its deadest states due to the length that Broken Moon was part of that first split.
Mm-hmm.
I think people were just ready for anything for season 16. Season 16 hit with a fury, and the begging of change came along with it, and it only, there's a reason why you see 600 plus thousand people jumping on Apex.
Yeah. I think my favorite part about the class overhaul, let's call it,
Right.
is I think it just introduces more variables and more interesting choices that you can make in terms of putting together team compositions, right? These additional functionalities for these legends aren't game breaking, but
No.
they're interesting to think about, and it just makes me
You're
approach
thinking.
legend select differently, right? Think about it, try to, adjust the way I want to play. What character do I want to pick? There's more variables to think about, and I think that's cool. They gave some love to some legends that I think needed it. I'm not going to play Mirage, but giving him some love in
Dope.
terms
They're
of his
still doing it.
res is super cool, right? Wraith getting that buff on her portal,
Huge.
awesome. Pathfinder getting some love is great. You know, people
So
have been
fun to play.
begging for that for so long. The rotating maps in ranked, wonderful change. God, I don't know why it's taken so long for that change to come through. But that was sorely needed, and it now, I mean, it just now it means that like I don't feel the need to take a split off if the map is not one that I like, right? I
Right.
just be like, all right, maybe I
Which I
won't
think
play.
they learned that with Broken Moon. Broken
Yeah,
Moon was
right.
probably the nail that did that.
Because I think a lot of people were really excited. Like when Broken Moon initially came out, it felt like a lot of people were like, dang, this looks really cool. The things that they were doing with the zips were interesting with the mobility around the map. I think initially there was a lot of excitement. And then it was a ranked map and people played for a week. And then they realized,
Wow, this
wow, this
sucks.
sucks ass. Yeah, like we don't like this map. Because like that was my entire experience with it. I thought it was super sick off the front. Started playing it a ton. After a week, I was like, wow, I fucking hate this. Like, can I just have World's Edge back? I'm like, what? I gotta wait another like month to play it? Fuck this. I'm not touching rank. So, I think that it just is a fresh coat of paint. They aren't drastic changes, but they give more options, more variables, things to think about. And what I hope is that it continues to kind of foster a bit of what we saw in the professional meta over the last 4 to 6 months. Whereas, like, yes, did we see a lot of Seer and Horizon? We did,
Yes.
but I think
Team was getting creative.
it was very clear that it wasn't that you didn't have options, right? People were playing Sea Horizon because they were busted, for sure. But there were also so many different legends that have been viable at the competitive level for the last solid period of time. And I think these new changes only further reinforce that. And I think it's great. And also, I think it is important to note, a lot of us thought that, on paper, the Seer nerfs were going to basically just absolutely shove him out of the meta.
Still decent.
He is still fine. From what I've seen, I haven't played him since the patch. From what I've seen, he feels terrible to play now compared to the prior to the patch, but is still pretty good. So
in the hands of a skilled individual, Seer is still a very available choice.
Yeah.
I think someone made a decent point. They said like everyone's gonna move away from Seer here for the first month and a half, and then we're gonna get back into the Pro League split, and you're gonna see it slowly push its way back in because inherently, I mean, it's gonna take more. Like I'm okay with seeing Seer meta if it means it's more challenging to make the scans count, more challenging to get the heartbeat sensor trained in the right ways, and a few other things. And as a result, there are some teams out there who might go, yeah, we could play Seer, but man, we fucking suck at Seer. And the nice thing is because of the other buffs and the class system, all that, they do have the flexibility to explore other options and be like, yeah, let's run the Wraith Caustic Mad Maggie comp.
Yeah. And I think it is important to note that they do still need to hit ranked. And that's been one of the complaints. Like PvPX has been hitting that drum since the patch notes come out, that like we still need changes to ranked. And I think that is, that's important to continue to point out, because rank continues to be in a bit of a flawed state. But overall, I'm happy with the patch. Let's talk a little bit about Series Z last night, because it was our first look at competitive play on the patch. From the kind of meta perspective, what we've seen in terms of the adjustments to the legends, what were some of your biggest initial takeaways from last night?
So Series Z last night, it's a really tough lobby to read. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Sure.
It's not your stereotypical pro knights anymore.
Nope.
You definitely have a lower mark quality in what is going on in there, and especially at the start of season, it did really feel like in certain scenarios, your kind of best 3v3 fighting squads were pulling off in a way, just because inherently there was less strategy regarding the legends and more centralized on, oh, these guys just know how to win their fights. There was the very short inkling of, wow, Caustic is back. Wraith is clearly, it's crazy. It's like, it shows me how much some of these players miss year 2 and prior,
Mm-hmm.
because there's such a heavy, like the pickup almost immediately. Wraith gets a minor buff towards her portal, and it's like every Wraith main Apex comp player comes out from the woodwork. They're like, all right, you remember the portal strats? Remember the old whatever? And it's like they just get that shit done. They get it going because that's what they knew,
Yep.
and they're back at it. And like to see the composition that revolve around it is super good.
Or you give Caustic a fucking circle scan, everybody's like, "Oh, my boy's
Oh
back."
man, right? That's hilarious. I like that. I like Bull Chaka. Yeah, so do the eyebrow thing. What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know that I have an eyebrow thing. I could just raise my eyebrows.
Can you raise one and a one?
I cannot.
Either way, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I like that the fact that World's Edge does see like a Caustic Wraith Mad Maggie thing right now, at least. That's super fun. I don't know what else to say past that.
Oh.
I think crypto will find its place in the hearts of some people shortly as they learn it and as some push it forward. And then I also think Stormpoint Bangalore is fire. Those are like the 5 things.
Yeah.
5 legends.
Yeah. Also MZD.
Dude.
Interesting. Zach Mazer.
Much Zach and Chaotic.
Chaotic much
Designful.
Yeah.
What a roster.
That's an interesting one. One to certainly
Maybe.
keep our eyes on. We'll have to see. Also Tech looking good yesterday. Playing with the sorcerers, and LG just continues to do LG things. I hope that they can come out and make some noise again in Pro League Split 2. LG was so much fun to watch last split, and I really want them to continue to be a force. Was there any crafted beacons in Series E last night? Not that I
really
saw. Like crafted banners, I didn't see any.
There were not a lot of teams picking support. Support seemed to be at the bottom barrel of stuff. Skirmishers, for sure.
Maybe
Assault, for sure. Right? Control, definitely. The minor cryptos here and there for recon and your bloodhounds and your seers, totally. Support, though, like you said, just maybe 1 or 2 Lobas every once in a while. We did see like 1 Newcastle, I remember. But outside of that, I mean, it goes back to the age-old adage for Apex. I mean, if you're playing off the expectation that you're going to die or lose out on somebody, you're missing out on a whole lot of utility that one individual can contain within themselves. I mean, I definitely think there are strategies. We look at From Nowhere. I want people to realize that there are strategies around these support class legends. From Nowhere, a hyper-aggressive team that literally takes every 3v3. If they see you, eyes red, they literally just go for the fight. And as a result, they run Lifeline. Because Clemmy plays Anchor. And the minute they start losing out on one, Clemmy steps in. It's a revive. It's a reposition. It's a perfect reset. And instead of only having one person to defend, they have 2 with Clemmy as that lifeline. And it's one of the few that I've ever seen outside of what was like Element 6 and Slayers and all that at the very beginning of year 1 here, where they did play that for a while.
Yeah. But ultimately, I will say still want and need to see more from the new patch, right? Couple of days of play.
Right.
In terms of ranked, 1 night of Series E. We'll still need to see more. But at the very least, initial returns, I'm excited. I
love it.
I hope that teams will continue to kind of poke and prod at the meta, try new things, see what works for them, and bring that out in competitive play, because I think the possibilities are pretty endless with the current state of the meta, and I'm looking forward to it. And even as a Seer player, like I wouldn't mind seeing less Seer, especially if it means we're getting more interesting and diverse team comps. I'm all about it, so I'll take what I can get.
I would like y'all in chat start coming up with your questions as I make this last point. We'll start answering afterwards. I think one thing that they really did was they didn't make some legends busted like they've done in the past. I
Yeah.
think they really did just do a quality of life on certain legends out there and just kind of bring them
Certainly.
up to speed from like B to A tier, kind of putting everyone on equal footing to create that variety that you're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you only have to look at the changes we've talked about today, right? Wraith,
Right.
Mirage, Pathfinder. Doesn't
Bam.
make them OP, gives them a little bit more power, but brings them up into the class with those other legends. And I think that's great. And it just makes me want to play. Man, I wish like
I have been
look,
playing. It's
I
super
love
fun.
talking Guilty
It's
Gear,
so
and I'm
good.
looking forward to the show tonight. But like, a part of me is just like, man, but I could just stay home and play Apex with Zephyr. But it's fine.
Dude, it's so fun. I've been having so much fun these last
Have
few
you been
days on Apex.
playing ranked or just like TDM?
TDM and BR.
Okay. Well,
No rank. I have a ranked trio that I play. Come on.
we'll get you in on that very soon. TDM is fun though. I will say, I'm
I really
kind
like
of
TDM.
I'm kind of bummed that they're actually doing away with the round format. Yeah, the games were a little
get
long.
it.
Like I would have almost rather they tuned maybe down the kills per round, maybe brought it down to like 20, and kept the round format. But
I think they needed more stringent policies regarding levers because when I had a
that
full
too.
6-on-6 TDM, it's really fun.
Yes.
But the problem was that there were like literally so many people that were walking away
Yeah.
from the mode very early on, and then literally like last night I had an instance before Series Z while I was playing in the VMix. 5 people left after the first round, and suddenly it went from get 30 kills to can you find this one fuse who keeps hiding around the map waiting for you to find, and like
Yeah.
it's terrible. It's terrible. So
Yeah.
I like the 1 round 50. I still think that's fine. It's exactly what I still want to play.
Also the Nemesis.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit.
Damn.
I'll tell you what. I hate burst in Apex. And it's probably just because I suck ass. Like, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Fuck the hemlock. Keep that double tap trigger the fuck away from me if I have a G7 or an EVA 8. I will not touch that shit with a 10-foot pole. And I immediately was like, burst energy rifle.
See ya.
Not going to fucking touch that with a 10-foot pole. And then I played my first game of deathmatch. First round. Oh, R301 and alternator. Give me that shit. Right? We smoked the first round. We go to the second round. I'm like, give me my R301 again. And there was no R301. And I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't want a fucking Prowler. Fuck that. And then I saw the Nemesis. And I was like, all right, I'll try it. Like, I've got to try it at some point. Picked it up. Damn, that thing feels good. Like, there's been a discussion. A lot of people have been calling it OP. I've also seen a lot of pro players on Twitter saying it's not actually OP. It just, like, feels strong. I don't know,
man.
but like I suck and I can fry with that thing at mid-range. I hate if you get within like 20 feet of me, I'm like really sad because of the sense that I play on. But if I can get you at mid-range with a 2x on that thing, whoo, it beams, man. And even at long range, like even
It's
at
really
like
good.
80
Mid long range
meters,
is insane.
Oh, it's disgusting. That fucking is like so recoil. It has terrible hip fire. Yeah, it feels.
I will
feels
say,
bad.
out of all the ARs from mid to long range, it's the best.
Oh, it's gross.
Little recoil,
Yeah.
kicks ass, spools up super fast. That's like not even a downside in most situations. And then suddenly you're just ripping. All right, Q&A. Should maps be tailored to suit a specific legend class, or should maps be designed to suit all legends and all styles of play?
Oh,
I think
I don't like
there.
maps for specific legends.
Yeah, I don't want
classes.
maps or legends to influence each other at all, right? I think just naturally maps exist, and then certain classes and certain legends will always fare a little bit better,
Yeah.
right? If you made a map that was literally just a flat field that slowly closed in, all you would see is fucking Newcastle. All right, like I'm happy with that.
Newcastle advantage.
Yeah, Newcastle Vantage.
Yeah.
Right? I genuinely think that people need to stop saying like this is a bad map, because it doesn't play like World's Edge, right? I think teams and players need to start adapting to the given fact that these legends are way more adaptable than they give them credit, and to start trying to play around that.
Yeah.
So I'd be more than happy to throw Broken Moon or Kings Canyon or Olympus into ALGS or whatever. Teams will adapt. Teams will, when money's on the line, teams will find the best meta for the map and they will play it. They'll complain first and then fix it second.
Really want to see Olympus ALGS. Not gonna lie, the bug that ended up happening that meant like we didn't get Olympus for rank
Really
for
sad.
that split. Actually, kind of a bummer. I was looking
I
forward to
liked
playing
Olympus
Olympus
a
again
lot.
because I hadn't touched that map in a long time, and it's actually a map that I enjoy.
It's one of my favorites by far. I like how
So-
colorful it is. I like the design, etc.
Yeah, it also is a very pretty map
Very pretty.
in my opinion. Yeah. Any other questions? Things you guys want us to touch on before we wrap up a quick little episode here, folks? Drop them in the chat right now. As we wait for those questions, though, we'll say again, thank you as always for continuing to come out and support the show. If you missed the live version of the show, you can find it on my YouTube channel or your favorite podcasting platform. Just search The Hot Zone, and you can find it there. And of course, we will have more to talk about on future shows. And reminder, we're here live Thursdays, 12:30 p.m. Pacific time at twitch.tv/ZephyRcast if you would like to watch it live. As casters/organizers, how do you feel about how common or not transfers are and how roster lock situation is feeling this season?
I have my take.
Go for it.
It's clear to me that unless you're in a situation where you've tried, like, say, E8 for 8 months to get something done, I think for certain rosters, everyone's just looking to catch that next wave and what works in, like, a short time span. As, like, in terms of, like, just a solely, like, me doing my research, no big deal. I'm happy to keep telling the story of these players and, like, transfer, like, oh, this guy went from here to here and yada yada. But in terms of, like, if I was coaching a team and, like, what do I think is going to be successful? Nah. You need to stick with it. Unless it is exclusively obvious, like in E8's case or Sentinel, that it's shitting the bed.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say from the perspective of like a caster and what like those things mean to me for what I do, I don't care from that perspective. Where my opinion comes in on that front is just like I feel like there are sometimes where and I think you make a great point, right? Every team is just trying a lot of the times to kind of capture lightning in a bottle. It feels like with roster moves, and they'll sign a roster, they'll play a couple of tournaments, and if they don't, fry,
You'll already hear something.
yep, and they'll just make a change, which like at certain times makes sense, but I feel like not often enough are teams willing to kind of work and build a foundation. And they just feel like, and I feel like that comes from maybe, a less informed initial decision for bringing a player in. It feels like maybe you didn't think about, what are this player's strengths and weaknesses? What do they bring to the table? How do they fill what we lack? And it feels like, because you just said, oh, this guy's a demon and ranked, has had some good stuff in, Pro League Quals or whatever, we'll bring him in, and if it doesn't fucking pop off, then fuck it, we'll move on. So I feel like a lot of these decisions come from maybe not quite as informed decisions up front, to where if it doesn't work out right away, they're willing to just fucking rinse and repeat. So that's my only take. But for like as a caster, I don't give a fuck, man. Change your teams, we'll figure it out.
Phony to phase, sure.
Yeah,
no
those have been
idea.
the rumors. I love it. Like if
Frex
we
and
get
Zen splitting
phony
up, not surprised.
If we get phony Luda Snipe, that'd be disgusting. That'd be super fucking
Pretty
cool.
solid.
And that would make me so happy for Phony. I'm such a big Phony fan. I've gotten to spend time with him in person multiple times. really great dude. Congrats to him on getting married, by the way. But just
yeah.
it's just one of the nicest people and a really hard worker, and I think he deserves it so much. So I hope so. That would be so fucking cool. And yes, the whole thing with Fragzen splitting up. Yeah, it is what it is.
We've hashed out about SSG quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think SSG's done. That whole roster going their separate ways. Mac Lunati teaming up, sure. I don't know how it comes into play for Pro League and all that, but sure.
Do you think
Do you think a woman?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's closer that EA sponsors a women's like organization and tournament series, kind of like how Twitch Rivals could host like a women's exclusive event. And I think EA would be closer to sponsoring that than starting ALGS because it is clear that like it's hard for women to get their shot in Pro League. Don't get me wrong, it's really difficult, especially as teams get more tight knit and these players route again and again and again in the same circles. But Sabs exists. Estesu exists. Girl was around, right? There are women are very much capable of playing on the same field as men, and it's a shame that the opportunities don't pop up as often as they should.
Yes.
But because they do exist in there, I don't think there's going to be a specific ALGS women's league. I'd be very surprised. Because then that immediately, like, imagine you're Sabs and you're like, dang, I've been in Phoenix Legacy for so long now, competing in Pro League every single split, working my ass off. And now they want to I get it gives a bunch of other women a ton of really great opportunities, but it's like, how does that feel for her? Because then what, do you drop down and like just crush a bunch of other competition? And it's like, doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Also, Porcupine, right there with you. Hopefully Ava kind of starts to get her roses following the signing by TSM. Because we're big Ava fans on this show, and we were super psyched to see that announcement recently. So,
friend of the show. Do you know anything about Realm League starting in NA? No.
Is that the one that?
First, that's EMEA.
Dia,
that's
Is that the one that Dia and Fallout have been talking about?
No, that's Tellus. Tellus is the Canadian.
So hard to keep track.
Yeah. Also interesting, Tellus hosting one of the biggest prize pool events ever, but it's paid for registration and only the Canadian region. There's a reason why you see both Dia and Fallout on social media asking people to join.
Yeah.
That's a very tall drink of water to make happen.
But then it goes into, you have 2 TSM teams in Pro League. That is an interesting discussion. I think.
Notably, Jane, it has been confirmed that they're not teaming for Pro League. That's not how that works.
Yes.
It's just TM is supporting all 4 of those individuals separate, right?
Yeah.
And in their own regards and own productions.
Yeah. And I don't know that EA, I don't know, they could certainly make an exception for an org like a TSM, but
I was like, if TSM's asking for 2 orgs, if you're EA, you really got to look at yourself and say,
yeah,
I know we don't usually, but like,
yes, because they typically do not allow that kind of sister team stuff to an extent.
Will we see Y4SO and Oversight? I'll try.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
I'll put the good word for it.
And yes, and Zephyr certainly has, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. And we've caught up.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Again, thank you everybody for continuing to come out.
Heck yeah.
Bit of a shorter episode.
I'm sorry for being tired. I'm just tired.
I am too, man. Don't worry.
Oh, plug for the Zephyr tourney? Yeah, sure. Come out tomorrow. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be starting the Zephyr Showdown qualifier number 2. The top 11th through 20th Pro League teams, the likes of Horizon Union, Passion, Star to Fight, Nightmare, FUT, they're all going to be there competing up against the top 10 that have moved on from last week. Who is 0-0 playing with? I guess you'll just have to come and find out. Another reason to stop by. And it won't just be me who's casting that event. I'll be joined by a lovely, lovely man by the name of J.C. McDonough.
Okay. Okay. Did you just have a fucking aneurysm? Do I need to send a fucking ambulance to your place? God
J.
damn, dude. My guy just stroked out live on camera.
McDonough. Y4SO will be
Damn.
joining me to cast qual.
I will be
Thoughts on
the show
2R1C? Very happy. You can go back and watch the VOD. I think it's already published.
Yes,
We talked about them during the Pro League Qualifier stint.
Oh, right.
Their coach is the best. Oh my God. Stop that. It's literally right there.
All right, folks. That does it for us today. 12 episodes of the Hot Zone and lucky number 13 to come in the near future. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Make sure to tune in to the Zephyr Showdown tomorrow, and we will see you later.